Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome author, activist, and entrepreneur Paul Hawken.
Hi. Nice to see you too. My God, I was talking to Janine backstage and was saying, you know, this is the one audience where we actually get nervous. And I think I don't know, she'll finish the discussion, but it's because you guys are just so amazing. We're going, oh my gosh, you know, when you go to an audience and you don't know anybody, it's so much easier than when there's, I know him. About 18 years ago, I introduced Janine to Interface, who you're going to hear from, the carpet company founded by Ray Anderson. And you know, later after this morning, you will see the Biomimicry Global Design Challenge Award being presented here on stage by Janine and the Ray Anderson Foundation. But this story goes back, and I want to take you there. 18 years ago, I was part of what's called the Eco Dream Team. I didn't name it at Interface, okay, named after the basketball team in the Olympics. Amory Levins, Bill Browning, John Picard, Bill McDonough, Paul Hawken. What's common to those 5 people? Yes, exactly. Thank you. Exactly. It was kind of a guy thing. And at a meeting at the Interface team, I told them I wanted to bring in a biologist onto the dream team. And they said, who is that? I said, Janine Benyus. And they go, who's that? You know. And it was like, they were saying, like, a biologist? These were engineers and executives, half of whom were also engineers. And it was a manufacturing company, and it had nothing to do with plants or animals. And it was like, Paul, like a biologist, you know? And I explained that she had created this novel concept called biomimicry, and they nodded. And accepting for Ray Anderson, which, you know, these were good old Georgia boys. I mean, he's a good old Georgia boy too, but these were good old Georgia boys. And you could just feel it in the room. No one said it exactly, but it was like, well, she's a girl. I tell you, you could cut it. And I said, yeah, she is the female part of our species, that's true. And then when they said yes, then I had to convince Janine to come to Interface, and she said, like, really? You know, what could I possibly do for a carpet company? And but she did come, and not long after, she went for a walk in the forest, and this walk has become sort of infamous in design history. Not infamous, but famous, excuse me. And maybe you haven't heard it, so I just want to tell you this story. She and the head designer, David Oakey, went into the autumn woods in Georgia. The rain had soaked the ground, and against the dark soil were pine needles and acorns and red, yellow, and orange maple and leaves. And they walked and they stopped in the forest, and she asked David a very simple question. She said, how would nature design a carpet? And I don't know how long it took before he answered the question, because I wasn't there. But he stood there, and finally he said, nature never repeats. That's exactly right. The pattern on the forest floor varies infinitely. And from that, David designed a carpet line called Entropy. And it was the first time since the Industrial Revolution that the warp and woof of a loom was set up in such a way that it never repeated a pattern. It was infinite, right? And so those carpet tiles could be put together in any way. There was no connecting pattern. They saved a lot of money for the company. They saved money for maintenance, ownership. Everybody saved money. It became 40% of Interface's sales. A girl. Ray Anderson passed 5 years ago, and his daughters and their husbands and his grandson John are here today. And one of their main projects is the Biomimicry Challenge Award. And I think it's so cool that this circle is unbroken. Personally, I have walked in forests with Janine. I am spellbound to this day by what she knows, sees, understands. When you're with her, once she begins to unravel the delights and the mysteries of a species or a plant, you realize how much you don't know. You're learning so much. You realize, oh my gosh, there's so much to know about where we are. I used to introduce Janine as the biologist who has a heart as big as the moon. I used to. Here's what I really think. I think the moon decided to have a daughter. And of course, moons can do that. They don't need a guy. But just to be polite, the moon asked the sun to make her child's hair red instead of silver, because everyone knows that silver-haired babies come from the moon, and so she didn't want anybody to see that, so she is a redhead. And Janine's task on Earth here was very simple. Her task was to show us Earthlings where we live. First, she had to figure it out herself. So where do we live? And she has spent a lifetime discovering that. It's one miracle after another, one astonishing creature after another, one amazing enchanted adaptation after another. It is life. It is infinite intelligence. It's rigorous. It's alive. It's kind, enchanted, generous, resilient, mutualistic, and of course, benevolent and unselfish. That's what we're talking about. Life never repeats. Walk with her, talk with her, spend a day with her, and you will be enveloped in awe and wonder and delight and rapt amazement. Her joy is literally perennial. I have never seen it change. It's always there, present. It's freshly minted every time you see her. She's, I think, one of the happiest women on earth, happiest woman I know, because her life is about exploring miracles. And she shares it with us with unconditional love. In an election cycle where the shadow masculine struts around and reduces the sacred feminine to body parts, we have before us in Janine the extraordinary gift of the feminine. The woman, the lover, the biologist, the wisdom holder, the healer of the narrative who stitches up the broken pieces left by this maddened culture into a narrative that is refined and entire. For we know in part and we prophesy in part, but when completeness comes, what is in part disappears. Ladies and gentlemen, Janine Benyus.
God, I love that man. When I went to Interface, I brought my mother and our mother into the room as well. That's who I brought. And I'm here to bring her in again. We are a little afraid right now. And when we get afraid, we crawl up in our heads sometimes and we think, we have to put solar mirrors up. We have to fertilize the oceans. We have to make the planet great again. No. It's already really great. And so this is what we have to do. And we have to remember that 99% of all species are smaller than a bumblebee. So it's even the things we can't see. And they're there for us. They are there for us. I've got the honor today of not just being with my beloveds in this audience, but to announce the winners of the Biomimicry Global Design Challenge. Yeah. And we did food systems this time. And for obvious reasons, it's really where our species is turning. We're making a turning point, and it's about food. And that's exactly where it should be. I'm going to be with John Lanier giving out the Ray of Hope Prize, $100,000 to a team. I'm going to tell you about some of these teams because they're amazing. Biomimicry Institute exists to give people the experience of looking to nature for advice and being blown away by the answers and then adding their own creativity to heal the things that are broken. I want to tell you about the fact that these dreams come true. These Bioneer dreams come true. Across from my hotel, wandered into a restaurant called The Perennial. You guys probably know about this. Asked for a local beer, and I was told I was going to be drinking Kernza wheat, perennial wheat that Wes Jackson's been working on for 35 years. And I was going to drink it or have some bread. I literally almost jumped across the bar and kissed the bartender. Because this has been years, right? These literally are the headlines that we wake up to. Hippie nonsense or corporate game changer. I'm always like, cut and paste. I'm always going, well, actually, it's hippie game changer for corporate nonsense. Long root ale. I'll have another. Never thought this day would come. It's the first perennial wheat. It's a perennial wheat. Wes Jackson, holding that root ball, has been working. He had an unshakable faith that we needed perennial polycultures to make them self-fertilizing, sponsor their own pest defense, build their own soil, not need pesticides. Way, way back when. And people thought he was nuts, except for Wendell Berry, and they dreamt together. And then he went out into the prairie, and he does what Biomimics does. He asked, why are you so robust? He literally, with his grad students, went out and cut with scissors 200, 300 species, and he put them in piles. Cool season grasses, warm season grasses, legumes, composites. And they were just 4 piles. There was a pattern. Can you imagine when they saw that pattern? They thought that they were seeing the code, right? The code. And now we're doing cover cropping, 20-way cover crops. It's amazing. Don't ever ask small questions. It's not time to adapt yet to climate change. Not yet. It's not time to stop at 1.5 degrees centigrade. We have to get back to the conditions in which we and the rest of this planet evolved. Holocene, halcyon days. We have to get back to that living range. And I think we can. And Paul thinks we can. We work together on this project, Drawdown, which is amazing. Check this out. And it's about reversing. It's about reversing that, taking that healing curve down. It's the point at which year after year, we not only drastically stop those emissions, but we start to pull the legacy carbon out of the air, which we must do. And we don't do it alone. I mean, that's the thing, we don't have to. Thankfully, we don't have to. And guess what? A lot of the projects in Project Drawdown, a lot of the approaches that are pulling down lots, if put to scale in the next 30 years, lots and lots and lots of carbon out of the air, deep into the soil where it can be sequestered for centuries, millennia. Biosequestration, biomimetic agriculture. What we've been talking about, what Wes was talking about, the perennial polycultures inspired by the prairie. Of course life knows how to do this. The ungulated inspired rotational grazing. Of course, why did we ever pull the animals away from their beloved grass? Tropical forest inspired multi-strata agroforestry. Can you imagine? People have been doing this, of course, for years, right? But we are now starting to do this. And it really accelerates carbon drawdown. This is a great book, by the way. There's so many good books. I don't want to reference one, but Eric's on our board, and he's just amazing. Carbon Farming Solutions. Look at the new biomimics. Look at the new Wes Jacksons. Elaine Ingham. Do you guys know her? Yeah. She's I mean, I just get on, I get on and watch her videos, and I'm like, no way. She knows what's going on down there. Christine Jones, she's telling us about activating those sequestration pathways, right? Which is about getting the CO2 into liquid carbon, feeding it down to the microbes and that entire biota, sequestering carbon, long humidification, right? So we've been so focused on plants, but we get now to learn to help the helpers. I think that's our next quest. And in order to do that, we have to get to know them and know what they like. So here's another. Look, this is a hippie mag, Forbes. Kind of interesting, huh? And they're talking about mycorrhizal fungi. Roots are not in splendid isolation, of course, right? They're not only wrapped by these mycorrhizal fungi, they're actually, those mycorrhizal fungi are going out. This is amazing. It's the largest mining operation on the world, in the planet they're talking about now. This is a fleck of mica. And this is fungi, hyphae, going through the mica. We now see that that's how they're getting their minerals. Every little bit of sand, right? Every little bit of flake of mica, and feeding it, right? Making it available to the plants. And when you see this, here's what's below, right? It's not just a one-on-one. Those mycorrhizal fungi are wrapped around that root, but not just one-on-one partnerships, right? It's a party. It's a party. It's a network. We now know, thanks to another teacher, Suzanne Simard, Dr. Suzanne Simard, who's teaching us about the common mycorrhizal network. So those fungi go out, while they're not mining, they reach over to other plants, other species that are not even related to the species that they just left and moved through the soil. They wrapped around another root network, and another root network, and another root network, and she's calling that the Wood Wide Web. Right. And those organisms are exchanging water with one another. They're exchanging phosphorus, they're exchanging nitrogen, they're exchanging alarm signals so that they can help beef up each other's defenses when a caterpillar comes into that forest, right? The chemical conversation. It's a new scientific field called interkingdom signaling. I love it. I love it. We're just now starting to eavesdrop on it. But my question is, why did we ever interrupt that conversation? You know, when we opened bags of nitrogen and bags of phosphorus, we told those microbes, you're no longer needed. We did. We thought we were doing good. We also weeded away anything that could be seen as competition. Why? I'm very curious about these switches. You know, Wes Jackson, when he was trying to do perennial polycultures, wheat with perennial roots, the scientific wisdom was this. The conventional wisdom was that there'd be a trade-off, and if you put too much energy into roots, you wouldn't get any seeds. And he said, oh, poppycock. Or something stronger, if you know Wes. There is no trade-off. It was a conventional wisdom. What was this conventional wisdom about? I'm going to take you back a little bit. Beginning of the century, this is Frederick Clemens and Henry Gleason, and they had a huge debate going on. The question in ecology was, how do ecosystems organize themselves? Clemens said, it's community, it's mutual aid. Gleason said, no, they're individuals and they're getting as far away from each other as possible. Okay? Now, it sounded a lot like Gaia. We don't like that when there's a Cold War going on, do we? Gleason won. And even when I went to forestry school, you were called Clemensonian if you talked about mutual aid. Clemensonian. For 50 years, we studied competition because there was a Cold War going on, and we didn't like that communitarian stuff. So, conventional wisdom. But you know what? What's cool about science is if the math doesn't work, you keep going after it. Okay? Now what's happening? I'm going to tell you about some of these teams. This is they call themselves Bioneers. And their job is to regenerate soil with biota by creating spaces for life. And they've got a problem in Chile. Fruit orchards, avocado orchards, when the trees die or they get weak, they have to replant. What they do is they cut the tree down, they hit it with chemicals, fungicides, maybe it died because there's too many microbes in the soil. And then they put a seedling there and it doesn't grow. And it's actually happens year after year and year after year and year after year. So this team decided to go up way high where it's really, really tough going, up in the mountains. This is called the cushion plant. And the cushion plant is thousands and thousands of stems. And in between the stems, there's spaces for life, and other plants get started because they're getting protected from UV light and wind. And the moisture comes. They are the poster child for mutualistic facilitation, it's called. That's how it looks. And scientists have now realized that when in stress, organisms cooperate more. It's counterintuitive. They don't spread out. Gleason was wrong. So they've created this biopatch that they put over the seedling, the stump. They plant it with plants. So putting plants on the soil, right around the seedling, counterintuitive, in order to nurse it back to health. They're finding the different functional guilds for rooting. It reminds me very much of Wes Jackson's work with finding those patterns. Can you imagine finding the code for healing soil with plants? It's a beautiful thing. Beautiful thing. They're called Bioneers, and that's what it looks like. And they want to do whole fields eventually. Regeneration with seawater greenhouses. Here's the dream, but this is really the reality. It's the Maasai village. There's a lot of people in dryland areas that need water to get regeneration started again. This is called the mangrove still. And they're using a lot of biomimetic ideas in that, in a modular system, to get water to plants to start that. The mangrove ecosystem is the pioneer species that brings fresh water, land, and soil, and they're starting that. I have no idea why these guys are called penthouse protozoa, but I like it. Do you like it? I like it. They're from Oregon. They took on a huge problem. I didn't even know this in the Midwest. A lot of fields, when they flood, especially now with climate change, they have a lot of drainage pipes in them. And those are sluices of nitrogen and phosphorus going to the Mississippi River and down to the dead zones. Sluices. As are all of our infrastructures. We have pipes under all of our parks and our sports fields in the city, sluices of nitrogen, sluices of phosphorus. This is kind of how it looks. And these are the drainage pipes. These guys looked at how nature grabs nutrients out of water, all the different ways. Earthworms, your intestines. They looked at lots and lots and lots of different organisms through a functional lens of biomimicry. And they're now making these pipes under the ground now with sleeves of biochar, of mycorrhizal fungi, of nitrifying bacteria that will grow up, and eventually there will be no need for nitrogen fertilizer. It's kind of cool. It's kind of cool. That's the living filtration system. This is in cities. I mean, it's not just, we have to do this everywhere we live and work. And this is a balcony biocultivator. This is a composter and a self-irrigating farm, basically, for yourself. And it's self-irrigating thanks to the Texas horned lizard and the Namibian beetle. Literally, that cupola has patterns in it that when the heat comes up from the compost, it condenses and then it moves down, and it's a self-watering balcony farm. And in Central Europe, they're from Slovakia, in Central Europe, 19 million people balcony farm because they just left their rural areas and they miss it. So here it is, and it's beautiful. It's a Fibonacci sequence. It's gorgeous. These guys, BioX from Thailand, there's some high schoolers here. Check this out. Check this out. They looked at the fact that 2 billion people are malnourished, 19,000 species of edible insects, and 2 billion people do look to edible insects, but they go and they harvest them. Lots of energy to walk out and find the insects. But there's lots of protein in insects, compared to beef, for instance. So they said, how does nature harvest insects? And they did this huge sweep of carnivorous plants. Amazing. And look at this beautiful thing they created. It's called Jube. It catches insects. They go in there. That's the model. It goes in there, and there's just simple downward pointing weaving, and the insect can't get back out. They catch 10 to 20 grasshoppers an hour. That's a lot of protein. But the really cool thing is that they're getting all of these different villages to do their, it's traditional Thai weaving. And they're getting all these villages to do their own, so they're doing art and culture combined with this. And you can imagine being able to hang this in your home or put it in the grass and get that much protein. That's a lot. But then the villages are actually weaving these and selling them. Beautiful. These are high schoolers. Beautiful. And there's some of the prototypes. Look at their team photo. Yeah, you're gonna hear a lot from them. Oasis Aquaponics from El Salvador. Aquaponics systems can cost $1,400, $2,000. They're great. You can get fish and plants, but they're really expensive. This is $100 aquaponics. This is a game changer. Real game changer. $100 for an aquaponics system with a lot of food. That's a game changer. These small holders are the climate change champions, I think, because there's so many of them on less than 5 acres. And there's a moment right now when we want organic, and a lot of food and beverage companies in the last 10, 15 years are starting to go to smallholders. There's a moment right now where we must not let them ramp up the factory farm for these smallholders. I think we need to do a pledge. I think we need to have them do a pledge that they're going to do carbon-friendly, woman-friendly, family-friendly, topsoil-friendly farming if they are in a contractual relationship, and we make that happen. That's the democratization of drawdown. So, I couldn't let you go without giving you a little Montana. This is a real picture from my iPhone. This is how lucky I am. I got out a lot this summer. I got out a lot. We went backpacking a lot. This is 3 miles from the parking lot. It's off the beaten track. It's an unnamed lake. My partner Laura called it epitome. It's the epitome of a lake. But here's what I'll have you remember. When I was sitting there, I realized something, that problems in the natural world don't come in singles. There's always a complement. There's a complementarity in the natural world. So when there was too much oxygen, I'm channeling Lynn Margulis, on our planet, life invented aerobic respiration. It needed oxygen, right? And it wound up loving oxygen. We have to wind up loving carbon. But look, here's the dual problem. There's too much carbon in the air, and there's not enough in the soil. Because we've lost it over the last 200 years, we've lost about, Ratan Lal says, 50%, maybe even more of the organic, long, non-labile carbon. We've lost it into the atmosphere, but it's up there. And as Paul says, we have to learn how to bring that home. But we don't have to do it. We just have to learn how to help the helpers. Thank you, guys.